CNN legal analyst and constitutional attorney Pate here with us. First, let me get to the issue of asserting executive privilege.
Okay.
If the president chooses to do this, how does it work?
Well, what he tries to do is basically inform Mr. Comey that he cannot testify to discussions that Comey had with the president because they're covered by executive privilege. So the first step usually is to go to the Department of Justice, Office of Legal Counsel, and get a formal opinion saying that this would be covered by executive privilege, and then notify Mr. Comey that he cannot speak. Then it's up to Comey as to what he's going to do. Is he going to listen to the president or go forward anyway?
But they could go to a federal judge.
Right. That would be the next step. If Comey says, okay, you want me to stay quiet, but I'm not going to. Number one, I don't think executive privilege applies, and there's nothing you can do about it anyway. And if I'm going to go forward and testify, the only thing the White House can do then is go to a court and try to block it.
So is this, excuse me, a matter of degrees that they can say we are asserting executive privilege over these specific conversations or this topic alone?
Exactly. That's how it would have to be couched by the White House. They would have to say, okay, you can talk about what we had for dinner when we met for dinner, but you cannot talk about specific discussions we had about the investigation.
Okay, so now, do you believe that the president will assert executive privilege?
No,
Okay.
I think they would be crazy to do it because they'll lose. Executive privilege, whenever a court looks at it, whenever a president's tried to use it, and many presidents have tried to use it. Nixon tried, he lost. Clinton tried, he lost. The Obama administration tried in the Fast and Furious investigation, they lost too. Courts do not like to keep evidence of potential misconduct away from Congress or away from the public.
Okay, so now let's say that the president does not assert executive privilege and Comey does testify on Thursday. These are, as Christy just talked about, the memos, these contemporaneous notes that he took after his conversations with the president. I mean, how do you expect they will play a role in this? Is he going to simply be able to read from them, or will he have to rely on memory about these notes?
Well, I think first he'll rely on memory. They'll ask him, what did you and the president talk about? Did you feel pressured by the president? And I really think his testimony, if it is as advertised, is going to be very different from what President Trump has said about those meetings. And so then the question is, well, who's right? Do we believe Comey or do we believe the president? And then we go back to those memos. And it is totally common, it is almost routine for any FBI agent or federal prosecutor to take notes or to make some sort of record of important conversations that they have. They testify to these things all the time in court. So if it comes down to a credibility question, he goes back to his memos that were made at the time. There's no reason for him to fabricate that back then. He had no idea he was going to be fired.
Now, we heard from the White House when Sally Yates was, just days before Sally Yates was going to testify, Sean Spicer said that we want her to go and tell her story.
Right.
We're not hearing that from the White House now.
No. In fact, they've already said they're reviewing the idea of executive privilege, which to me means they're pretty desperate because that is a long shot. I don't see legally how they could successfully assert executive privilege in this situation.
Do you think the decision has already been made? I mean, Kellyanne Conway came out, didn't talk about it. Sean Spicer says that it's under review.
I mean, wouldn't you think so? I mean, it's not like Comey just said yesterday he's going to testify. We knew this was going to happen. In fact, back when Trump sent out the tweet about he better hope they're not tapes, I anticipated that if Comey were ever to talk about this publicly, that the only way the president could keep him quiet is to try to assert executive privilege. So they must have known about this.
Well, we do know that this is a president who, in some cases, will bring his decision to the communications department at the very last minute.
Right.
We can go back to the firing of James Comey, where they found out and were sent out. So how much of this is based on optics, and how much of it is based on protecting the president's conversations in this discussion of executive privilege?
Well, if it's optics, it's really a bad call, because what are they saying by suggesting we need to assert executive privilege? They're saying we expect Comey to say something different about those meetings. And that means somebody's lying. And America's going to have to figure out who it is.
All right, well, I've got a lawyer in front of me. I want to jump to another topic involving the White House. There was an exchange yesterday during the briefing between a reporter and Sean Spicer about a conversation about the Russian investigation. And this was Spicer's response. Let's watch.
As I've mentioned the other day, that we're focused on the president's agenda, and going forward, all questions on these matters will be referred to outside counsel Mark Hassel.
But how can you not answer questions on it when the president himself tweets about it?
We're focused on his agenda, and going forward, all questions on this matter will be referred to outside counsel. Jill.
Two things. Firstly, nobody is actually responding to any of those questions. I don't know where you guys are in actually finding spokespeople or people who want to respond to those. That would be helpful.
So if you couldn't hear, Jill there said that if you guys are actually finding new spokespeople or people who will respond to these questions, that would be helpful. So thus far, although they are referring the questions to Mark Kasowitz, the president's personal attorney, and a spokesperson there is no spokesperson. Is there some requirement at all for them to answer these questions once they've been referred?
Not legally, no. And in fact, if I'm representing someone like the president in an investigation like this, I'm going to let those calls come in and I'm not going to return them. You do not want to add fuel to the fire. You don't want to make any more public statements that could later be used against you.
All right, Pate, thanks so much for helping us understand it.
Thank you, Victor.
All right.